think we're going to move on now to leadership best practices. We recently had a client who dealt with significant leadership changes over the course of their ERP implementation. Can you talk to me a little bit about how the team was able to manage that situation, their team and ours?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, the one in particular I'm thinking with, not only did they have changes, right, in the leadership, but also the implementation partner did. So when you think about, here's the thing again, trying to make this super practical and less abstract. When you implement software, it's not like you're building a house where everybody can see, I don't like that faucet, or I don't like the floors, or I love the floors, or the way the ceiling works, blah, blah, blah. You can't really see the software. Like, you have to go in and you have to check it and run your processes and do things. Maybe you forgot to do the procure to pay process in the middle of it, right? And then you go live and you're like, it doesn't pay bills. That's a silly example. But you better check that, right?
Yeah.
But who sets the vision for how the software should work? Right? It is the leadership team. It's the people that are in charge of the project, both from the client side as well as from the implementation partner side. They sort of say up front, this is how it's going to be, and then the rest of the team kind of delivers it. That's the basics of it. Now, if that leadership changes on either side, well, you have a different vision then that somebody brings to the project that they might not have understood the why we were doing things before, or they may have a better view. It totally depends, not to say it's worse. But this is where, documentation is a lost art in our world. It really is. I mean, the simplest example is code, things like customizations being documented. You would think everybody does that.
Nope.
But nope, they just do it. And then you go
And hope
test
they remember.
And hope they remember.
later on,
Yeah,
right?
No, we made this change.
Right.
Why?
Right.
When?
Yeah, that
Who?
doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's all there.
Yeah.
Right? Like I mean, literally, you have to think about this stuff like a mind. Like, literally, your mind has all these memories and they're connected and whatever else, and that's what the software ends up being. But if the person who's setting up the mind leaves and they don't document it, they don't tell others this is the why we're doing it, or if it's not obvious the why, then when you have that change, you're starting over, and that does happen. I think in this particular case, they did have, on the implementation partner side, they have different people that come in and say, well, that's not the right way to do it. And I'm like, you're telling me that the person that was there before you're at the same company, was doing it wrong? That's what you're saying in front of the client, right?
Yes.
This is raw, baby. This is raw. Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yikes.
That's what they're saying. And maybe in times of yore, there was more loyalty or whatever to the company, where maybe the person could just zip their trap and then go talk to the person at the top and say, why did we do it this way, right? But no, sometimes you get people that just come in and say, oh, yeah, we got to change this and that. And you can watch the client, the person who has to pay for it, their blood pressure that's like from those old cartoons, the old Bugs Bunny Looney Tunes, their pop tops, because they know that means change order.
Yep.
So anytime you're looking at, a change in leadership, you're looking at a change in direction, potentially, most likely. And it does come with, okay, what does that mean for the software? And it could mean a delay, and it could mean, more money. So this is why I always say and always will say that doing an ERP implementation is like heart surgery. And if you talk to a cardiac surgeon, right, and they're probably called something more fancy than that, but the longer that the chest is open, the more likely there
the
is for
more risk.
infection,
Yep.
somebody screws up, whatever happens. So you got to get in there, you got to do it, and you got to close it up so that your leadership stays the same, the goals don't change, the business doesn't materially change, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Get in, do it, and leave. So then that's honestly the best mitigation towards a leadership change, is to just get the project done with the right level of functionality that you need.
Yeah. Kind of just like ripping the Band-Aid off, right? And then
Absolutely. I mean,
praying to God it heals.
We've seen changes where they get into the implementation, leadership change at the executive level, and the project gets canceled. And those are some of the worst cases.
Yeah.
You want to avoid that. There's so much investment, so much heartache and pain that's gone into doing it in the first place, that a leadership change can have that level of impact.
Yeah.
That it can stall or even end a project.
It can stall,
right?
it can end,
Yeah.
it can delay. we don't want to see that happen, and it's hopefully not common, especially when we're involved. But that is the impact of leadership change.
Yeah. Well, speaking of that, before a project even begins, how can a business prepare its team to ensure that they have the right resources available to help them be successful?
We have a client that I think is really like best practice. So there was a senior executive who realized, okay, we got to get in new software for my area, but I think the software could probably help the other areas. So he goes to the other area heads, leaders, and says, hey, this is what I'm thinking. Do you think there could be some benefit? Oh, yeah, sure. Okay, yeah, of course. Okay, good. Let's put together cross-functional subject matter expert team to just talk about, even before they talk to vendors and folks like us, like, let's just get this team together to talk about what we're doing today, what's going on, right? Boom, the team meets once, and they're like, we really could do some things here. Yeah, good. The person who set this up knew that already, but they're getting the involvement, right? Then they reach out, find an advisor like us. They don't have to use people like us. Lots of people buy software without people like us. But somebody needs to know what they're doing. And they anoint a leader. They volunteer somebody to run it.
Right.
And they're like, no, I got, like, are you kidding? Like, I've been involved in ERP. It's so hard. But whatever. They do it, and they know they need to do it, and they know they can make an impact, and they're that kind of person, and that's awesome. So they anoint. It basically is anointing, but they identify, appoint a leader.
The chosen one.
That's right, the chosen one.
Yes.
It could be the sacrificial one. It could be so you got to be careful, right?
Right.
But,
right.
so then they get that leader who then is sort of driving this initiative, which is great, right? And then they kind of can start down the process. We're always going to say, find out what your needs are and make sure you get everybody involved. But, that it's not just that mid-level leader. If you have a higher level executive who drives the project, that higher level executive better not be that busy. It's usually a mistake. I'm thinking of one client in particular where it's not, because he's made it almost his full-time job to be involved, because the middle level leader sort of has this broad spectrum across the whole enterprise, and they have to bring people together to sort of get a common understanding of what the software needs to do, right? So if that person's wicked crazy busy, even if they're at the middle level and they've got a full-time day job, don't do that, right? You need to give these people time to do this and drive it. So that project structure of sort of a executive sponsor, one, right? Maybe there's an advisory group or there's a steering committee, but not just yip yap, blah, blah, but like these people know their areas and they're going to steer the project, right? But then there's one cat who's held responsible for the success. And then she has a person underneath her who's the mid-level person that knows a lot about the business and can work with all these various needs and wants and whatever. And they're kind of like a cool guy or a cool gal that people like to work with already, Don't put somebody in there that people don't like.
Right.
You're going to fail unequivocally. And then have these different teams available, the different subject matter experts that are part of each of their areas that know accounting and operations and sales and HR and whatever. And right there, that leadership team, it's not just one person, it's multiple people. None of them have to work full time on this unless it's a bigger project. If you're 500 million or more, and you have a lot of transactions and a lot of complexity, 500 million in revenue.
Right.
Or say a nonprofit that maybe has, 500 employees or more, from what I would say, there might be the person in the middle that does need to be full time. But that leadership structure that I just related is extremely valuable.
We're going to share.
I would only add to that you have to empower the people to be able to make decisions. Too often it's like only one person at the top can make any decision, and then everyone else is on hold.
Their hands are tied and they can't
tied.
make a decision.
So you have to empower your people as well. Don't just say, hey, you're responsible, but you can't make any decisions. So the structure that Sean was talking about is absolutely important, but I've often seen problems, and as we're in the trenches with this, is like, okay, we need to get this done. Everyone is in agreement? Yes. Okay, let's go. Well, we can't. We have to stop. We have to wait. We have to get this approval, and they're not empowered to actually execute. If that's not there, you have a huge roadblock.
Yeah.
And that is part of the leadership structure. Leadership needs to empower the sub-commanders, the people under them, to be able to execute and do the job. If they don't, leadership structure breaks down.
Well, and I will tell you too, again, being more honest here about, not honest, but just forthright. Usually we're like, oh yeah, it's, you got to have change management. No, this is like for real. The culture, if you have a person in the middle who isn't willing to push it a little bit, you're probably not going to be successful. Like that person, they have to be empowered, and all the politically correct things to say, oh yeah, they've got this. But no, for real, the more that person just sort of is like, there's like this thought process. This is what it is. Mm-hmm. No one else is doing this. I see the need to help. I can probably do it. I'm super busy, but I don't know if anybody else is as busy or less busy. And I kind of been through this before, and I think it's kind of cool. That's the kind of person you want. And they're probably going to, like you said, Q, when they run into a problem about what about this and what about that, they're probably just going to say, we're just going to do option B, and then it's better than nothing.
Right.
Right? So you really do need that. And they might not be the sponsor. They might not be the PM. They might be the lead architect, or they might be the lead technical person, but
business analyst.
Yeah, the lead business analyst is somebody who's just like, we just got to make a decision, and I'm just going to do it. And if I get fired, I don't care. Maybe I do, but maybe I don't. And those are the people that are the leaders, right? Because that kind of person is thinking they have the best view, and their job is to do this anyway. And so they need to sort of do it and then ask for forgiveness later, or else sometimes the project just dies, because again, it's like the surgery. It's like a construction project. It's like all these projects that we can see. It's like building a house in like the universe. You can see we have a place down in Florida, and there's a bunch of construction going on around us, and it's turbulating. There's big trucks coming in, and there's stuff all over, and there's dust. You're like, oh, just make this project end already, right? The longer it goes on, the more risk you have. So you got to have leadership giving the ability to people to make decisions. But I would also say the people doing this just need to make the best decision possible, because the sooner we get through it, the more life gets a little more normal, and then you can kind of move forward. But when you're in the middle of this stuff, and that is a big reason why most projects get delayed on the sort of the development side, is that the customer doesn't say, just do this already. I don't know if it's the right thing, but just do it.
Yeah. Better to move than to be uncertain.
That's right.
Even if it's the wrong decision, it will carry you forward much further than you think, even if it's not the perfect decision.
Yep.
Right.
I'd also say identify your success criteria, your goals, and your risks, and just be determined to get through it. That determination and that decision as an individual who's in a leadership role to move the project forward and get to completion, I can't say enough about that.
Yeah, if you don't have goals set up at the beginning of a project, you will fail.
Yeah.
I guarantee it.
Yeah.
Like, I really mean that. Like Deming said, you can't improve what you can't measure. And if you can't achieve a goal if you don't have one. Right?
If you're just walking blind hoping
somebody else will set it, it'll just happen, or we just want to implement. Like, don't do that. Like, get everybody together at the beginning in terms of this leadership team. I don't care if it's 5 minutes. I don't care if it's an email that somebody just says, hey, here's what I think the goals are. Tell me what else you think, and then get the email back. But that shared viewpoint, that shared vision of what you're trying to accomplish is huge, for sure.
Well, we talked about having the right resources for an implementation project, but sometimes it can be hard keeping your team engaged. Yeah. How can a leader keep their project on track and keep their team engaged? Is there a best practice for that, or?
I would say off the top, first thing, meeting cadence. Make people attend, even if there's not much to talk about.
Okay.
Just get them together to communicate every week, maybe multiple times a week. The cadence and how often you do it is not the primary factor, but you have to set it and have them stay involved. Otherwise, they've got so many other things to do.
Right.
And it just slips away. Other things get a higher priority. That meeting cadence is sort of the foundation of keeping things moving. And if you can put that in place, then your resources stick to it a little bit better. Set the next meeting is the next thing.
That's right.
Don't go away from a meeting without knowing when the next one is going to be.
Okay.
Otherwise, it doesn't happen. Someone's like, "Oh, I should set a meeting." Well, I'm going to get
It just
busy over
falls
here.
through the cracks.
And
It
it
doesn't
falls through
happen.
the cracks.
Yeah.
Set the next meeting.
Yep.
Okay.
So
Good to know.
cadence and get the next one scheduled.
Yep.
And if you do that, you continue to make progress. It might be slow. You might have people fall off, not be able to attend. But if the overall team can get together and keep that going, it increases your likelihood of success drastically. It's not the only factor, but
Right.
Yeah. And if I was listening to this, I'd be like, oh my gosh, more meetings
Right.
and meetings and meetings and meetings. And I understand. Again, we're being raw here. Not too raw though. I got to be careful.
Yep.
Sorry. But if you're having a meeting that's worthless, that's because there's a person in the meeting that's talking too much, or that is not adding value, or saying stupid stuff. Get the person out of the meeting so that everybody else can work.
Right.
Because I think my final piece on leadership in ERP, and I've never actually said this. It's great that we're able to do this, right? And I mean, we're on project, what are we, 425?
Something like that. Yeah, just heard that. Mm-hmm.
Right, and that's in 12 years, that much less the other 13 before that I had. That ERP is one of those times where you really do need a leader. And it's hard to lead, especially today. It's hard to know what's right to say and what's not. And it's a different environment that we work in. People's schedules are tough. They're working from home, blah, blah, blah. Like it's a very hard time. But it goes right back to what Quentin said, that if you don't have that meeting cadence, your project will not happen. Okay, but I have so many meetings already. No, you have worthless meetings. And a meeting isn't just worthless because it's scheduled. It's because somebody's in the meeting that is sabotaging it. Oh, no, they're not. They just don't know how to act in a meeting. Get them out. Get them out of the way. This is one of those projects in a person's career that you cannot get wrong, because it will follow you to other jobs. Even if you quit, you're just going to know it, right? And there's so much help. There's so many things we have for people. These videos, our website, us, whatever. There's other companies out there that do this too. But at the end of the day, from the client side, that project leader is probably going to have to tell somebody that they need to get that person, the whatever, out of the way so that the rest of us can move on. And that is a defining moment in somebody's career when they can step up and do the right thing. Because the project touches so many folks throughout the organization, there's going to be some that are suppressive.
Yeah.
And if they're suppressing your initiative, as a leader, you have the responsibility to get them out.
Wow.
I know.
That
It's
can be
unfortunate.
scary,
Oh,
right?
man.
Yeah.
I don't know about you guys, but I'm ready for like a smoke. After this, right? I don't even
I know.
smoke.
Oh my
I don't even know why
gosh.
people
The
say
only
that.
thing I would-
stress
especially
of-
around go
yes.
lives.
Yes, and as we said, this was unfiltered.
That's
so,
right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, we'll have to circle back and we can finish up talking about implementation, because we could go on and on and on, right?
Yeah.
So, well, thank you both for your time today and for always sharing such important information with me. I appreciate
Yeah.
it. So,
Very
Pleasure
well
to be
done,
here.
Juliet.
thank you. Thank you. All right.